My name is Anita, as Gerardo introduced me, and I'm going to talk all about Apache Airflow Backport Providers, focusing on Google providers. Like a small disclaimer, I work for, as Gerardo said, I work for Google, so my knowledge in that area is probably bigger than for other Airflow providers. But there are providers for also other cloud providers. Maybe I should talk about the title because it's quite cryptic. Um, uh, Google, Amazon, AWS, all the providers were rewritten in Airflow 2.0. And they've changed their package modules. Actually, they've changed the package modules, and some of them get rewritten and retested during the process. So the thing I'm going to talk about is the newly released package, which is because because the providers work only for Airflow 2.0. They were also released to be compatible with earlier Airflow versions 1.10.x, so that you can start using them, and that should ease your migration later on into Airflow 2.0. Again, I've been introduced twice, so maybe I shouldn't. I won't repeat the information that were already given. I work on Cloud Composer. Sometimes I'm Airflow contributor. I'm not an author of providers or backport providers. I'm also not an author of the docs. I've been using Airflow as a part of Cloud Composer team and maintaining infrastructure that uses Airflow for the last 6 months. So I wanted to give credits to people who actually wrote the providers. This is a screenshot done with some bash script that shows number of lines contributed by different people to Airflow providers Google package in GitHub. So there are lots of people: Kamil Breguła, Tomasz Urbaszek, Jarek Potiuk from Polydia. And when it comes to those providers, they not only migrated them, they have also added a lot of nuance. And the details will be in the next slides. One of the things I'm excited about in new providers is how much documentation they have. And this documentation, as you will see, is really amazing. So I also wanted to give credits to people who wrote the documentation. Yeah, thank you. You did a great job. So what is my objective? My objective is to encourage you to move to new Airflow providers and help you do that. Yeah, and that's basically it. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you not so quick introduction to backbone providers. Actually, it will be the most of my talk. Then I'm going to show you how to install them in Airflow, how to install them in Composer, different versions of Composer. You'll get a preview of new Airflow 1.10.9 along the way. I'm going to show you how to migrate 2 DACs actually from legacy to new providers. And I'm going to talk about known limitations of backported providers versus providers in Airflow 2.0, because backported providers needed to work with different source code and also with different Python version. So not everything works as smoothly as it would have worked with Airflow 2.0. So what's the story of backported providers? There was an AIP 21 in which there was a proposal to change the packaging of module paths of Airflow providers. There were sometimes in Airflow concrete package, sometimes in different packages, and what this proposal was saying that there should be some order to make to that, and there should be some standards of naming, and they should be in one place, and that the contrib packages should be separate from the main core Airflow. So it doesn't seem like a big change, just repackage the existing providers, does it? But along the migration, it ended up as a big rewrite. Some providers were written. People from Polydia created a basic script that creates a stub for a new operator. Lots of operators were added. Examples were added. System tests were added, and they caught a lot of bugs. So that's why I recommend using those new providers, because they're retaught, rewritten, and retested. So those are the slides that I'm going to devote most times to. I want to convince you that you should spend your precious time that you would otherwise spend on maintaining infrastructure, data pipelines, on rewriting your DAX and changing those modules. Why? I've already mentioned a few reasons, but let me reiterate on that. One great thing that I'm excited about is the separate release cycle for Airflow and providers. You are not forced to upgrade Airflow to be able to get new code for providers. So that's that can be a big plus, especially if you're working in a big organization that has its policies and you want to have a stable production. You can only update a chunk of it, risking less and not doing Airflow upgrade. Another reason is great documentations and how-tos. There are tutorials. Each of them contain examples, and each example is testing using system tests that use real services. That gives you guarantee that the providers will work later on, because they get tested as a part of a release and usual unit tests. There are lots of sources of documentation. I'm going to show some of you. You have general operators and hooks guide. Oh, no, don't do that. Sorry. Sorry for that. It behaves differently. So first of all, you have operators and hooks reference. which has a general introductions to what operators and hooks are. And then you can go to specific operators. I'm going to focus on Google operators here. And Google Cloud Platform. As you can see, with every provider that gives you integration with a specific server, there's a how to use. And for example, for Cloud Life Sciences, you can go to how to use and see examples of how to use each pipeline, and you have reference to Google API, and you have product documentation. So that's easily accessible for you, which should be great. But what actually, when I was talking to the people who wrote those providers, they say that actually your main source for documentation should be README in the GitHub repo for the package. Oh, sorry for that. And the README can be found in Airflow Providers Google, for example, Google, and there's a README. And there is a list of all the new operators, moved operators, new hooks, moved hooks, new transferred operators, and with links to the source code. But what's most important, you have if the operator or hook was moved, maybe you wouldn't be so much interested in the hook. Maybe you'll be more interested in the actual operators or transfer operators. You can see the old package, and you can see the new package. So that should ease the process of migration for you. The other things, as I mentioned, are system tests. It's great that we have them. Hopefully they will help avoid regressions as providers depend on core Airflow, and they can be tested like this. Another great thing is you can only install modules and dependencies that you need. Actually, it was possible with the old providers, but now it's also possible with the new providers. Instead of installing optional modules, you install one of the packages. As I said, moving to new providers should ease your migration to Airflow 2.0 when it's released, and I know lots of people are waiting for it. And you will be forced to move to Python 3. I hope almost everybody did that by now, but if they didn't, well, they should. So you'll be doing the migration stepwise, instead of doing all-in-one migration from Airflow 1.10.x to Airflow 2.0. There is a lot of new functionality for Google integration. I've already showed you the list of, I showed you the README with the list of new operators, transfer operators, sensor, and hooks. But to give you a summary of new functionality, there are new operators for AutoML, which weren't there, for Cloud Memory Store, Data Catalog, Data Fusion, Life Sciences, and Marketing Platform. Each of them with great documentation. Yes, so you can get the full list of Google operators here. And when it comes to new transfer operators, all of the country package operators have been moved, but there are new operators that transfer to and from Google Sheets and to and from Presto. So GCS to Presto to GCS and Google Sheets to GCS, for example. And I guess that's it. But a lot of new functionality. Actually, I've just mentioned packages, but they're like separate Google services. So that's good. Another thing is that many of the providers just use the Google API, and old providers sometimes used to encapsulate a few operations in one. That may seem convenient, but actually it wasn't great for debugging. And new operators oftentimes pass a map of arguments that is similar to the API call that you would do via Google. And thanks to that, when there's a new field in API, you can use it straight away. What is great also, if you are using providers old or new, is that connection is being handled for you and it works out of the box. For example, in Kubernetes cluster inside GKE. And compared to you writing the provider yourself, you could do this yourself, of course, but they have error handling, connection handling, retries built in, which requires some effort, and that's been done for you, so that's great. And if comparing to calling API via REST versus using providers, you have community support, bug fixes, discussions. You can use Stack Overflow to ask about specific operators, so that's good. So how do you install it in Python? It's as easy as that. You just install your Airflow, and then you install Apache Airflow Backport Providers Google. For example, to use Backport Providers, Google Backport Providers. There are other providers out there. Installation in Cloud Composer is a little bit complicated right now, I must admit. It should change soon, but right now when you're upgrading and using new Airflow Backport Providers, you're upgrading underlying GCP library. And to make everything work, you have to upgrade all those libraries together. For Airflow 1.10.9, which will be released pretty soon, you only need to install this one package using Cloud Composer UI. So that's good. And yes, to the main topic. I said I wanted to show you that this migration is not that hard. As you can see in this example, it's our test DAX. What I needed to do is to change the import, and after I've changed the import, and change the names of the operators to use new operators, The only thing I needed to do is change string type because it's Python 3, and that's basically all. So, but I was said I wanted to make it super easy for you to actually figure it out, and I've almost laid out an algorithm for that. So what would be the algorithm? You have your provider, or you have your code that, for example, uses Google PubSub. You go to README for Airflow Providers Google package. You search for your old operator name before the migration. You can see it. That's the old operator. So you can see that's the new operator name. So that's how you change. You know how to change your import. You just look for the old one, and then there's the import. You replace the import and name, and of course the implementation might have changed. So you go to how to for the new operator, and you find this how to via search. So I've written here the new name of operator, PubSub create topic operator. And here we go, it's here. You click it and you see how the call should look like. And that's basically it. I didn't have to change much in my migration, as there are some derived properties like project ID in the code. So yeah, that's it. And you can test it. And I was migrating quite a few code paths. And if you miss something, if it used to be often that the argument for project was project instead of project ID for Google operators. If you miss something, the information is very clear. There are clear warnings about that we still accept this argument, but please change that argument in the future because it will not be supported in the next releases. And what I love about the new providers is how much work went into documentation and clear error handling, and for it being useful and easy to use for people who actually use backport providers. Here's another migration, one that looks more scary. Because it's just like it's the old code, and here we have the new code. I'm sorry, it's the other way around. It's the old code here, which was arguably smaller, and here's the new code. So it looks like there's more work to be done here because it used to be master machine type, worker machine type. But now you have this call with cluster, which is a map of arguments. What I argue, yes, it requires going to the docs and reading the docs. But what I argue, it's more maintainable. Because in the old operator, the argument to override had to be specified. And here you just use any argument that is used in the Google API call. Let me show you this. So this is how to on data proc. And this is how to create a cluster. And you can see that cluster is a map, and that map corresponds to creating cluster. You can use Cloud Provider API Explorer to create your request. And then basically copy paste the resulting map into your code. And that way, by using directly API, if a new argument comes in, it will be there for you. So that's cool. There are some limitations to that. As I said, not all providers work smoothly, but we're working on them to work more smoothly. So in Cloud Composer, we are pushing for our customers to turn on DAX realization. Unfortunately, while testing Airflow Backport Provided operators with DAX realization on, we found out that that basically those three operators, because of how the plugins are loaded, do not work. But there's a GitHub, there's been a pull request in the master already. It's being pulled into Airflow 1.10.11, and it will work. We'll probably backport it to Airflow 1.10.9. GK startpot operator does not work for Airflow before 2.0 now, as it uses CNCF package from core that's not been backported and released yet. And also because of the paper mill package using exclusive feature for Airflow 2.0 of Airflow 2.0, it has not been released. So there are a few hiccups that you may expect, but we'll try to resolve them soon. I wanted to thank you, but let me maybe go once more to why you should use those backport providers. I was afraid that time will not allow me to show all the documentation, but it does. So you can find the full list of backport providers here. There are 56 of them. For different integrations with different external software. What I recommend, if you want to know which functionality is already available, is going through this documentation in Read the Docs for Apache Airflow, and find examples for each of them. And to read the Google Operators Guide if you are curious how to use them. So if you already have your existing code, then just follow my algorithm of of going to README and mapping old package to new package and going to documentation. But if you want to use new functionality via providers, those instructions are excellent. Yes, and I guess that would be it. And if you have some questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you for a very interesting talk. So, if anyone has any questions, I'm sure Anita will be pleased to answer them. In the meantime, I actually have one question. So far, what sort of PR requests have you received from the community for this particular provider? Have you received any requests through the provider? People wanting to sort of extend Google services, maybe through the PRs. What have you seen so far?
So actually, we're trying to be proactive about it and give APIs to the products that are used in Google Cloud. But marketing platform, I guess, is great, and Vision API is great, and we'll be adding them. But actually, that question should go to Poidia. They're like main contributors to that, and they answer those questions. But yes, lots of people use BigQuery operators. Lots of people use data flow operators. And
Excellent.
we are planning to basically creating a new operators based on the REST API template is super easy, and Camille and people from Poidea have created a template on how to create a new operator that uses the GCP hook when you only need to write your execute code, and you don't have to worry about any wiring, etc.
Excellent. We have another question. So, do you have a favorite GCP operator?
I work a lot with maintenance of Composer, so I love the GCP operators that I don't have to hear about, that just work flawlessly. So those are my favorite operators from that standpoint. But no, but being serious, like there are AutoML operators, there are natural language processor operators, there are vision operators that enable you to use the power of Google machine learning without all the heavy like machinery involved in creating your and training your machine learning model. So that's great. I believe like natural language and vision operators are, yeah, but also there are those that you actually use a BigQuery operator, GCS operator, where your data lands if you're a data engineer and taking care of those. So that's nice.
Nice. We have another question. Are there instructions for installing the backport providers with Composer or Airflow 1.10.6 in the GCP docs or community docs?
No, not yet. They will be released really soon. They will be released just after this presentation. We're planning to first give you the presentation with all the links. But yes, like I do understand that. Why would you also need to update Apache Beam, and why would does BigQuery need to be in that version, and why do you have to update proto buffers, and how to do that not to destroy your Airflow is like it was not an easy fit, so it should be released soon. But what's nice in the one of the few next composer, it will be the same as for Airflow 1.10.9. All the PyPy packages will be updated so that they use newest Google cloud libraries, and you won't need to resolve all the dependencies and update proto buffers yourself, so that providers work. So that's like first, documentation is going to be there soon, and second, it will be like this in a release or two of Composer.
Excellent. So for testing, do you do some extra testing internally, or do you test it in a different way from the tests that are in the actual repo?
So like we have our internal tests. Yes, I showed them. Those system tests are good because they check if all the operators execute, but sometimes they don't have enough assertions, and we have for some operators that are crucial to our infrastructure to connecting to other services. We have some extra tests that not only execute the code, but check, for example, if the code was executing by checking if some label has been put on a bucket, or have we created some logs. And we have, not for our operators, because as I said, there are over 50 of them, but for the crucial ones, we have our more detailed tests.